Millions of people who live in Africa dream of leaving Africa and live in Europe. But today we are going to go through the story of a woman who did the opposite. The story of today's video will be about a woman named Corinne Hofmann, who at the age of 27 back in the 1990s decided to leave her comfortable, fancy life in Switzerland and go live in a hut made of mud in the middle of Africa in the country of Kenya. All of this because she fell in love with the Kenyan tribe warrior. So today's story will be a story of love, of passion, and of change. A woman changed her life, decided to abandon everything, her comfortable life in a very sophisticated country in Europe, all for the sake of love. And the question that we will ask throughout the story is love enough? So welcome to WooEnglish, and in today's story we are not only going to follow the story of Hofmann, but we are also going to learn a variety of vocabulary related to different lifestyles and also words related to relationships and emotions. WooEnglish is the channel where you learn English not through traditional boring methods, but through sophisticated stories that are made specially for people who are trying to improve their language, expand their vocabulary, and also cover various grammar points, all while having fun. Maybe you are doing chores, maybe you are doing exercises, maybe you are at the gym. You can plug in your earpods or put on your headphones and enjoy your story and also learn and improve your English. So today's story will be about love and passion, but before we go and listen and see what this story is really about, I would love to invite those of you who are watching this channel for the first time, make sure to subscribe. You will not regret it. Make sure, of course, if you have already subscribed, to like this video so that it can reach more people just like you who are passionate about improving their English. Without further ado, let's go into chapter number 1.
Chapter 1. The Man on the Ferry. The ferry was crowded. Its engine shook under the floor. People spoke around Corinne. Children cried. Cars moved slowly behind her. The air was hot and heavy. Corinne stood beside her boyfriend, Marco. They were on holiday in Kenya. In a few weeks, they would return to Switzerland. That was the plan. Then Corinne saw a man across the ferry. He was tall, very tall. He wore traditional red clothes and many pieces of jewelry. His hair was long. His face was calm. He stood quietly among the moving crowd. Marco explained that the man was a Maasai warrior. Corinne had never seen anyone like him before. For a few seconds, the noise around her seemed to disappear. She could still hear the engine. She could still feel the heat. But her attention remained on the stranger. She did not know his name. She did not know where he lived. She did not even know which language he spoke. Still, she could not look away. The warrior did not smile. He did not walk towards her. He only looked back for a moment. Then the ferry reached the other side. Everyone began to move. People pushed towards the exit. Cars started their engines. Corinne tried to keep the man in sight, but the crowd moved between them. 1 second, he was there. The next, he was gone. Corinne and Marco left the ferry. They were trying to find the right bus back to their hotel. The streets were busy. Drivers called to passengers, People moved in every direction. Then the warrior appeared again. He had seen that they were lost. Without saying much, he showed them where to go. His name was Likatinga. The three of them could not speak easily. Their words were limited. Their worlds were even further apart. But Corinne felt something she could not explain. This was not a normal meeting. It felt important. Likatinga helped them reach the correct bus. Then he stepped back into the crowd. The bus began to move. Corinne looked through the window. She watched until she could no longer see him. That evening, the hotel was quiet. Marco was tired after the long day, but Corinne could not rest. She kept seeing the same face, the same red clothes, the same calm eyes. She told herself that Likatinga was only a stranger, a man she had seen for a few minutes, nothing more. But the thought did not leave her. By morning, Corinne had made a decision. Before she returned to Switzerland, she wanted to see the warrior again. The problem was simple. She did not know where to find him. Chapter 2. A Stranger. She could not forget. For the next few nights, Corinne searched for Likatinga. She went to places where Maasai men sometimes met tourists. Each evening, she looked through the crowd. Each evening, she went back without finding him. Marco believed the feeling would pass. The holiday was almost over. Soon, they would return to Switzerland. Then, one night, Likatinga appeared. Corinne saw the red clothes first, then the jewelry, then his face. He had come to an outdoor dance. Music filled the warm night. People moved beneath the open sky. Corinne and Likatinga danced together. They moved in completely different ways, but neither of them seemed to care. Later, Likatinga invited Corinne and Marco to visit his friends. They walked through the darkness to a small settlement. There, Corinne met a woman named Priscilla. Priscilla spoke English well. For the first time, Corinne could ask questions about Likatinga. She learned a little about his life, but not enough. There was still a great distance between them, not only in language, in everything. The final days of the holiday passed quickly. Corinne wanted more time. Marco wanted to go home. He could see that Corinne had changed. Her attention was no longer with him. The journey back to Switzerland was quiet. Corinne left Kenya, but she did not leave Likatinga behind. Back home, everything looked the same. Her apartment was comfortable. Her clothing shop was successful. Her days were organized. Nothing was missing. And yet, something felt wrong. Corinne tried to work. She spoke to customers. She arranged clothes. She answered calls. But during every quiet moment, she thought about Kenya. She remembered the ferry, the music, the red clothes in the crowd. Most of all, she remembered Lakatinga. She had known him for only a short time. They could hardly speak to each other. She did not know what he expected from life. She did not know if he was waiting for her. Still, she could not forget him. Her relationship with Marco came to an end. Then Corinne made an even bigger decision. She began selling her business and her belongings. Her friends could not understand. Her family was worried. To them, she was throwing away a safe life. And perhaps they were right. But Corinne no longer wanted safety. She wanted an answer. Was the feeling in Kenya real? Or had she fallen in love with a dream? 3 months later, Corinne boarded another plane. She had sold almost everything. She was returning to Kenya alone. This time, it was not a holiday. She was going back for Lakatinga. But when she arrived, he was not there. Chapter 3: Searching Across Kenya. Corinne stood outside the airport. The heat touched her face. Cars moved past her. Drivers called to new passengers, but Lakatinga was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, she could not move. She had crossed the world for him. She had sold her shop. She had left her safe life behind. And now, she did not know where he was. Corinne went to find Priscilla. Perhaps she would have an answer. Priscilla was surprised to see her. She welcomed Corinne into her small home. But when Corinne asked about Lakatinga, Priscilla became quiet. She did not know exactly where he was. Some people said he had returned to his family. Others said he had gone far into the north. No one could give Corinne a clear answer. Days passed. Corinne waited. She visited places where Maasai and Samburu men gathered. She asked the same question again and again. Have you seen Lakatinga? Most people shook their heads. Some gave her different stories. Each answer led to another place. Each place led to another question. Corinne began to understand the size of her decision. In Switzerland, she could find almost anyone with a telephone call. Here, Lakatinga had no telephone. He could not send her a message. And his home was far from the coast. Very far. Then Corinne heard the name of a town. Maralal. Someone believed Lakatinga had gone there. It was not a promise. It was only a possibility. But Corinne had nothing else. So she began the long journey north. The road changed as she traveled. The busy coast disappeared behind her. The air became drier. The towns became smaller. The journey was slow and uncomfortable. Sometimes the vehicle stopped without warning. Sometimes everyone had to wait. Corinne felt tired. She also felt afraid. What would happen if she reached Marilal and found nothing? What if Lkatinga did not want to see her? She had built her future around a man she hardly knew. Now, there was no easy way back. At last, Corinne arrived in Marilal. It was smaller than she had imagined. Dust covered the roads. People watched the foreign woman carrying her bags. Corinne began asking questions again. This time, someone recognized Lkatinga's name. They knew his family. They knew where he came from. Hope returned. Then, across the street, Corinne saw a familiar figure. Tall, quiet, wearing red. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then, Lkatinga walked towards her. Corinne forgot the difficult journey. She forgot the waiting. She forgot every warning she had heard. She had found him. But Lkatinga had something important to tell her. His real home was not in Marilal. It was deeper in the bush. A village called Barceloi. If Corinne truly wanted to stay with him, she would have to follow him there. There would be no hotel, no comfortable room, no electricity, only his family, his people, and a life Corinne had never seen before. She looked at Lkatinga. Then she gave him her answer. She would go. Chapter 4. The Life She Chose. The journey to Barceloi took Corinne deeper into northern Kenya. The road became rough. Then the road almost disappeared. Dust entered the vehicle. The heat stayed around them. There were no large towns now. Only dry land, small settlements, and long distances between people. Corinne watched everything through the window. This was the life she had chosen. But it was not the life she had imagined. When they finally reached Barceloi, Lkatinga's family welcomed her. His mother looked at Corinne with great interest. The two women shared almost no language. Still, they tried to understand each other. Lkatinga showed Corinne the place where they would live. It was a small hut. Its walls were made from natural materials. The entrance was low. Inside, it was dark. There was no bed like the one Corinne knew in Switzerland. No bathroom, no running water, no electricity. At first, Corinne tried to smile. She reminded herself why she had come. She had not crossed the world for comfort. She had come for Lkatinga. That night, the village became almost completely dark. There were no street lights, no lights behind glass windows, only small fires and the moon above the land. Corinne lay inside the hut. She could hear animals outside. Goats moved near the entrance. Voices came from other huts. Then the village slowly became quiet. Lkatinga seemed relaxed. This was his home. He understood every sound. Corinne understood nothing. She closed her eyes, but sleep did not come easily. The ground felt hard beneath her. The air inside the hut was warm. Every small movement made her open her eyes again. The next morning, life began early. Water had to be carried. Food had to be prepared. Nothing came from a machine. Nothing happened by pressing a button. Corinne wanted to help, but she did not know the rules. Sometimes people laughed at her mistakes, not cruelly. They simply found her strange. She was a white European woman trying to live like them. Corinne also began learning how far everything was. A simple journey could take hours. A small problem could become serious. There was no doctor nearby, no shop full of food, no easy telephone call home. Still, there were beautiful moments. Children came to look at her. Women showed her how to do simple tasks. In the evenings, Corinne sat beside Likatinga. The sky above them seemed endless. During those quiet hours, she felt certain again. Perhaps love really could cross every distance. Perhaps she could learn this new life. Then her body began to feel different. At first, she thought it was only the heat. She felt weak. Her head hurt. She tried to stand, but the ground seemed to move beneath her. Likatinga reached for her. Corinne looked at him. Then everything went dark. In Switzerland, illness had always meant a doctor, medicine, a clean bed. Here, in the middle of the bush, none of those things were close. And for the first time, Corinne understood something frightening. Love had brought her to Barcelona, but love could not protect her from everything. Chapter 5. The First Cracks. Corinne opened her eyes in a hospital bed. For several seconds, she did not know where she was. Then she saw Likatinga beside her. He looked worried. The illness had frightened them both. But Corinne recovered. And when she became strong enough, she returned with him. She could have gone back to Switzerland. She could have ended the journey there. Instead, she chose Barcelona again. She still believed in their love. Now Corinne wanted something more. She wanted to become Likatinga's wife. But marriage was not simple. They needed official papers. They had to travel long distances. They waited in government offices. Sometimes one person sent them to another office. Then that office sent them somewhere else. The process was slow, confusing, expensive. Still, Corinne refused to stop. After many difficulties, they finally married. For Corinne, it felt like a victory. She had found Likatinga. She had entered his world. And now they were husband and wife. For a time, she was happy. Very happy. The village no longer felt completely strange. Likatinga's mother treated her like family. Corinne began to understand some local customs. She learned when to speak, when to wait, and when to follow the other women. Life was still hard. There was no running water, no electricity, and every journey required time and planning. But Corinne believed she could manage. She even began thinking about their future. They needed a regular income. They needed food, medicine, and transport. Corinne had owned a successful shop in Switzerland. Perhaps she could build something here, too. She began making plans. Likatinga seemed proud at first. His wife was strong. She understood business. She could solve problems. But slowly, something changed. When Corinne spoke to another man, Likatinga watched closely. When she smiled during a conversation, his face became serious. At first, Corinne did not worry. Perhaps he was only protective. Perhaps this was normal in his culture. Then the questions began. Who was that man? Why were you speaking to him? Why did you smile? Corinne answered calmly. The conversations meant nothing. She was only being polite. But Likatinga did not always believe her. He became jealous, then suspicious. One afternoon, Corinne spoke to a man about supplies. It was a simple business conversation. Nothing more. But Likatinga stood nearby in silence. On the way home, he questioned her again. Corinne tried to explain, but every answer created another question. For the first time, she felt tired of defending herself. That night, they sat outside the hut. The village was quiet. The sky was full of stars. Everything looked peaceful. But between Corinne and Likatinga, something had changed. It was still small. Only a crack. But Corinne could feel it. And she did not yet understand how wide that crack would become. Chapter 6. Love Under Suspicion.
So in the first part of the story, we follow the beginning of the journey of Hofmann, who fell in love while she was living in Switzerland at the age of 27. She fell in love with a man who lived thousands of miles away from her. Not only that, but their lifestyles were completely different. She lived in a sophisticated, developed country, while this man who she fell in love with was living in a hut of mud, meaning a small house that you see in like African documentaries that are made of mud, right? And she fell in love with him, and she decided to leave everything behind her back and go and follow her emotions. In the next chapters of the story, we are going to see how this story, how this journey, how this decision will turn up, and alongside the journey, alongside these interesting events, we are also going to learn and expand our vocabulary. So don't forget to like the video. I would love to see the likes reach 5,000 likes. So let's go and see the rest of the story of Hofmann.
The questions did not stop. They became part of daily life. Where have you been? Who did you speak to? Why did that man look at you? At first, Corinne answered patiently. She tried to stay calm. She reminded herself that Likatinga came from a different world. Perhaps jealousy meant love to him. Perhaps he was only afraid of losing her. But the questions became harder and more frequent. Corinne had started a small business. She sold food and other useful supplies. The shop gave people something they needed. It also gave Corinne a reason to believe in the future. Every morning, she opened the door early. Customers came from the village and nearby areas. Some were women. Some were men. Corinne had to speak to all of them. She had to discuss prices, deliveries, money, problems. But Likatinga watched many of these conversations. If a man stayed too long, he became suspicious. If Corinne laughed, he asked why. If she traveled to buy supplies, he wanted to know every detail. Corinne tried to explain that business required trust. She could not run a shop without speaking to people. But Likatinga did not see the situation in the same way. To him, some conversations felt too friendly. Some smiles lasted too long. Some journeys created too many questions. Their two worlds were beginning to clash. Corinne believed that words could solve a problem. Likatinga often trusted what he felt, and what he felt was fear. Fear that Corinne would leave him. Fear that another man would take her away. But his fear slowly created the very distance he wanted to prevent. At night, Corinne lay awake inside the hut. She remembered Switzerland, not because she wanted to return, not yet. She remembered how simple some things had been. A telephone call, a private room, a conversation that did not become an argument. Then she looked at Likatinga beside her. She still loved him. That was what made everything so difficult. There were good days, too. Days when he smiled again. Days when they walked together. Days when Corinne believed the worst was over. Then one small event would bring the questions back. A customer, a journey, a name Likatinga did not know. The beautiful dream was not gone, but it no longer felt safe. Corinne began choosing her words carefully. She avoided some conversations. She changed her plans to prevent another argument. Without noticing it, she had started making her life smaller. Then another problem appeared. Corinne became tired in a different way. Food made her feel sick. Her body was changing. At first, she blamed the heat. Then she understood. Corinne was pregnant. She placed a hand over her stomach. The news should have brought only happiness. Instead, it brought a new question. If life was already this difficult for Corinne, what kind of life would their child enter? Chapter 7. A child between two worlds. Pregnancy changed everything. Corinne was no longer thinking only about herself. Every decision now affected the child growing inside her. Life in Barcelona was already difficult. Now it became harder. Corinne often felt weak. Some mornings, she could hardly leave the hut. The heat made her tired. Food was not always easy to find, and medical help was far away. A small problem could become dangerous very quickly. Likatinga was excited about the baby. His family was excited too. But Corinne also felt afraid. Her child would belong to two worlds. One part of her life came from Switzerland. Hospitals, clean water, electricity, a different kind of education. The other part came from Barcelona. Family, tradition, the land, and the Samburu community around them. Corinne wanted her child to know both worlds, but she did not yet know how that would be possible. As the months passed, traveling became more difficult. The roads were rough. The journeys were long. Corinne worried about giving birth far from medical care. Eventually, she went to a hospital. There, she waited for the baby to come. The hours passed slowly. Corinne was tired, frightened, and far from the life she had once known. Then, at last, she heard a baby cry. A daughter. They named her Napirai. Corinne held the small child against her body. For a moment, every problem disappeared. The difficult roads, the illness, the arguments, the jealousy. None of them mattered. Napirai was alive. She was safe. And Corinne loved her immediately. When Corinne returned home, life began again. But it was not the same life. The baby needed food, rest, protection. Corinne could no longer take the same risks as before. She could not ignore illness. She could not accept every dangerous journey. And she could not pretend that the problems in her marriage affected only her. At first, Napirai brought happiness into the hut. Likatinga held his daughter proudly. His mother helped Corinne care for the baby. The family gathered around the child. For a short time, Corinne felt hopeful again. Perhaps Napirai would bring everyone closer. Perhaps she would connect the two worlds. But the old problems did not disappear. Likatinga still became suspicious. He still questioned Corinne's movements. And now, every argument felt more serious. Napirai was often nearby. Sometimes she was sleeping. Sometimes she was crying. Corinne began to watch her daughter during these difficult moments. The child was small. She understood nothing. But one day, she would understand everything. That thought stayed with Corinne. Before Napirai was born, Corinne had asked herself one question. Could she continue living this way? Now the question was different. Should her daughter have to live this way too? Chapter 8. When the dream became fear. The situation grew worse. Likatinga's questions became accusations. He no longer asked Corinne where she had been. He decided that he already knew. A friendly conversation became a secret meeting. A business journey became a reason for suspicion. Even silence could create an argument. Corinne tried everything. She explained. She waited. She changed the way she spoke to customers. She avoided some men completely, but nothing brought peace for long. The shop also became more difficult to manage. Supplies did not always arrive. The roads were unreliable. Money created new disagreements. Corinne worked hard to keep the business alive. But every success seemed to produce another problem. Likatinga sometimes believed she was hiding money. At other times, he believed she was planning to leave. Corinne denied it. At first, that was the truth. She had sacrificed too much to leave. Her shop in Switzerland was gone. Her old relationship was over. Her life was here now, with Likatinga, with Napirai. She wanted the marriage to work, but wanting something was no longer enough. One afternoon, another argument began in public. People were nearby. They could hear Likatinga's accusations. Corinne felt everyone watching her. She tried to remain calm, but inside, something broke. This was no longer a private problem between husband and wife. The suspicion followed her everywhere. Into the shop, onto the road, and now in front of the village. That evening, Corinne sat alone with Napirai. The child was sleeping against her body. Corinne listened to her daughter breathe, slowly, quietly. She thought about the future. What would happen next year, or 5 years from now? Would Napirai grow up believing that fear was normal? Would she learn that love always came with accusations? Corinne looked around the hut. Years earlier, this place had represented freedom, a new world, a life built for love. Now the same walls felt different. They felt too close. Corinne understood that she had started to feel afraid, not only during arguments, all the time. She measured every word. She watched every expression on Likatinga's face. She prepared herself before every simple conversation. This was not the life she had crossed the world to find. For the first time, Corinne allowed herself to think clearly. Perhaps the dream was over. Perhaps love could not repair what suspicion had destroyed. And perhaps staying was no longer brave. Perhaps leaving was. But leaving Kenya would not be simple. Napirai was Likatinga's daughter too. If Corinne announced her plan, he might stop her. He might refuse to let the child go. So Corinne kept her thoughts hidden. She behaved as normally as she could. She opened the shop. She cared for Napirai. She answered Likatinga's questions, but inside, she was making a plan. She would say that she wanted to visit Switzerland, only for a short time. She would take Napirai with her. She would not carry everything. She could not make the journey look final. Every detail mattered. One wrong word could end the plan before it began. That night, Corinne lay awake beside her daughter. Outside, Barceloi was silent. She had once traveled across the world to find Likatinga. Now she faced a harder journey. She had to find a way to leave him, without letting him know that she might never return. Chapter 9. The Courage to Leave. Corinne waited for the right moment. She did not know when it would come. Every day, she acted as if nothing had changed. She opened the shop. She cared for Napirai. She spoke to Likatinga as calmly as possible. But inside, she was preparing to leave. At last, Corinne told him she wanted to visit Switzerland. Only for a short time. She said her family wanted to see the baby. She promised that she would return. The words were difficult to say. Likatinga watched her closely. For several seconds, he said nothing. Corinne tried not to show her fear. Then he agreed. The journey could begin. Corinne packed carefully. She took clothes for Napirai, a few personal things, nothing that made the trip look final. She left many objects behind, objects she knew she might never see again. On the morning of their departure, Barceloi looked the same. The dry ground, the animals, the small huts, the people beginning another day. But for Corinne, everything felt different. She carried Napirai close to her body. Likatinga traveled with them for part of the journey. Corinne knew she had to remain calm. She could not cry. She could not look back too often. She could not allow him to see the truth. At the airport, time moved slowly. Every question from an official felt dangerous. Every delay felt like a warning. Corinne held the documents tightly. Napirai became restless. Then the final moment came. Corinne said goodbye to Likatinga. He believed she was leaving for a visit. Corinne knew she was escaping. She walked towards the plane with her daughter, one step, then another. She expected someone to stop her. No one did. When the plane finally left the ground, Corinne looked down at Kenya. This was the country where she had found love, where she had changed her life, where she had become a wife and a mother. It was also the place where love had slowly become fear. Corinne felt relief, but she also felt pain. Leaving did not erase the good memories. It did not erase Likatinga, and it did not make the decision easy. Napirai slept beside her. Corinne looked at her daughter. That was when she understood why she had to continue. The journey ended in Switzerland. Everything looked clean, organized, familiar. But Corinne was no longer the same woman who had left. She had crossed the world for a dream. She had lived inside that dream, and she had seen it break. Now she had to build a new life, not only for herself, for Napirai too. Years later, Corinne wrote about her experience. Her story became known around the world. Some people saw a great love story. Others saw a warning. But Corinne had learned something more difficult. Love can give a person courage. It can make impossible choices feel simple. But love cannot survive without trust, without safety, without understanding. Years earlier, Corinne had believed that bravery meant leaving everything behind. Now she understood the opposite. Sometimes the bravest decision is to leave.
And we reach the end of the story of Corinne Hofmann, a 27-year-old Swiss woman who decided to leave everything behind her back, go follow her passion, follow her love in Kenya with a man that she barely knew. In the end, of course, we have seen that she was in front of a big decision again, another big decision, which is to leave Kenya again, take her daughter and go back to Switzerland because of tribal conflicts, because of problems going on in Kenya back at the time. In this, or throughout this journey, we also learned a variety of words related to relationships, related to conflicts, and also related to different lifestyles that we see in the world. I hope you have enjoyed this story. I would love to end with a simple question. Do you think that love is enough? When in life in general, do you think that love is enough, like in the story that we have just watched? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss our future videos. And if you have already done that, I would love to ask you to help support this channel by simply clicking the like button and maybe leaving us your comment with your opinion about the question that I have just asked you. If you would love to get your hand to have the PDF version of today's story, you can do that at our website, WooEnglish.com. And if you would love to join people just like you who are passionate about improving their English, you can do that on our WhatsApp channel or our Telegram channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your English is a tiny bit better than when you started this video. See you next video.